Buen día. Yo les voy a hablar sobre el proyecto, un proyecto muy
Hello,
reciente
I'm
que
going to
hicimos
talk
aquí en la
about a very
Nación.
recent project that we did at La
Es la
Nación
nueva
newspaper,
redacción, las nuevas oficinas
which
donde
is
están la redacción y la
new
distribución del diario La
offices
Nación
where our
en Buenos
administration
Aires.
and redaction
Y vamos
offices
a
are
hacer un muy breve
in Buenos
recorrido de
Aires.
unos 15
And
minutos
we're going
por el
to look
proceso
in about
que
15
realmente
minutes
llevó
to
más de
at
3
the
años,
process that
que
took more
incluyó
than 3 years,
el
which
proyecto y la
included
construcción de
the
un edificio
project
nuevo
and the
en Vicente
building
López, en
of
la
a
ciudad
new
de Buenos
new
Aires,
space
y el
in
proyecto y la
the
construcción
outskirts of Buenos
del
Aires,
interiorismo
and the
de
project and
parte
building
de ese
of our
edificio.
offices that are part of that
Terminó
building.
este proceso con la
And
mudanza de
this process
750
finished
personas
with
de la Nación a esa nueva propiedad.
750 employees of La Nación that went that moved into the new
Voy a
offices.
comenzar, este,
We're going to start
contándoles un poco el punto de partida.
telling you a little bit
Traté de
about
buscar una
the starting
foto
point. I tried
elocuente
to find a picture that would be
estas son
eloquent.
las oficinas de donde nosotros veníamos, ¿no? Esta foto está tomada en el
The
año
picture
2008,
was taken in the year
cuando se
2008
comenzaba a hablar de que nos íbamos a
when
mudar.
we started talking about moving.
En realidad, en la empresa se venía hablando
In reality, in the
hace bastante
company,
más tiempo.
we had been
Por eso
talking
también
about it
quería
for a
hacer
long
esta
while,
inversión, porque siempre
and there
se
was
planteó que nos íbamos a mudar al año
investment
siguiente o
because
unos
we
años
were saying that we were going
seguiría,
to move
por
in the
motivos
next year, and that never
macroeconómicos
happened because of
de Argentina
different
y de Brasil.
macroeconomic uh,
La foto muestra un poco
situations in Argentina.
algunas cuestiones
This
relacionadas con la
picture
empresa.
shows
Es una
some of
empresa
the questions
que
related
tiene
to the
casi
company.
150
It's
años
a
de historia,
company that is almost
muy
150 years old, very
innovadora a la
traditional,
vez. El diario se
and
llama
very innovative at the same time. It's
es una
a
empresa donde
very
conviven
innovative
dos
newspaper,
culturas,
but it's a company where two
una
cultures
cultura más
coexist.
antigua, más resistente al
An
cambio,
older culture
y
that's
una
more
nueva
resistant
cultura
to
más
change,
innovadora.
and a more modern culture
Todo esto
that's
en
more
forma
innovative.
simultánea,
And
en una
this in a
empresa
simultaneous
que no
fashion
deja de ser
at a
familiar.
company that's still a family owned
Hacia
business.
Facility Management yo entré en el año
And what
2007,
this does to facility management, I started in
me
2007,
contrataron con la idea
and
de
I
traer el
was
concepto de Facility Management
contracted
al
with the
sector.
idea of bringing the
Formado
concept of facility management
porque eran
to
muchos
the sector
sectores
because
refundados,
it
y
was the
como
many
se puede ver en la
sectors
foto
meshed
no
together.
había ningún estándar
As you can see in this picture, there
de
was no
fabricación, teníamos
standard of
equipamiento
any
propio
type.
y había
In
literalmente
2008,
70
we
tipos
made an inventory, and there
escritorios
were
distintos.
70
Había
different
habido
types of desks.
distintos proyectos sin ninguna
There
visión
were
integral, como parques
different
centrales.
projects without an integral
Las
vision,
oficinas eran antiguas, se habían hecho
and
en
the
la década de
offices were old.
1970 y desde
They were
entonces
built
no había
in
habido
the 70s,
grandes cambios. La foto que ven
and there
ustedes
had been no great
es de
changes.
la redacción de La Nación, la redacción
This
del
picture
diario,
is of
en el
our
año
news
2008.
desk in 2008.
Sumado a esto, para
And
completar
additionally,
la problemática del punto de
to
partida,
complete the problems we
el dueño de la
faced at the
empresa había
starting point,
comprado
the
una
owner
parte
of
del
the
paso del
company had
movimiento, del
bought
movimiento al río,
uh,
o sea que teníamos mucha
shares
tierra y teníamos
in a
mucha
company,
capacidad para construir una
so
cantidad de
we
metros
had
cuadrados para nosotros.
capacity to build some
Con
square
una
meters for
visión
us, but with
clara
a
de que era un
vision that
negocio
was
factible.
basically
Eventualmente
financial.
podíamos mudarnos ahí o no,
Eventually,
llegamos a
we
hacer
could
una
move
inversión
there
de
or
una
not.
planta,
We're going to
estábamos
build a building that would be apt
desesperados,
for
vendíamos
rent,
cosas no, con lo cual
and
las premisas como para hacer un
the
proyecto adecuado para nosotros
premises to
no eran
for a
tan
project that
sencillas
would be
y
adequate
tampoco
for our
había
needs
tiempo.
wasn't that
La idea
easy.
era poner un
And
orden.
at the starting point, we had to put some order into all this.
Bueno, acá están listadas
Here you
lo que
can
estamos
see
buscando, ¿no? Un
the
diario
points that we're talking
donde
about.
coexisten dos
It's a
culturas,
newspaper where
falta de
two cultures
organización en la
coexist,
toma de decisiones
and
legales, etcétera.
there was a lack of
Vamos a
organization
hablar,
for decision-making
les voy a
processes.
comentar de
I'm
todo el
going to
proceso,
talk about this whole
simplemente tres
process,
conceptos que quisiera
three
enfatizar un
simple
poco,
concepts that I would
y
like
eso
to
sirve
develop a little
después
bit.
en las preguntas,
And
si
in
quieren
the
ampliamos un
Q&A
poco más en
session, we can
profundidad.
also talk, go into more
La
detail.
puesta en marcha
The
es
first
hablar
point
sobre el proyecto, más que
is
nada sobre los conceptos del proyecto.
the
Acá
starting
tengo
phase,
una foto para mostrarles. Y por último
and
voy
I
a
can show
hablar
you
sobre el
pictures and data,
proceso de la mudanza.
and I'll talk about the project
La
and
puesta en marcha
uh, the
les
whole
comentaba que
moving the
fue
offices.
complejo
I
cómo
was
transformar
telling you how
una
complex it
situación
was to
caótica
transform a situation that was half chaotic into an ordered and systematic process in which we could initiate our premises for the project, and where we could travel a ordered road. And there's danger in complex projects where uh, we had to look at the consensus and step-by-step basis to reach an aim that would satisfy our needs, and not only for financial business, uh, which is very reasonable, but also so we could take advantage of to uh, radiate an image that we wanted, and that this project reflected the concepts that we wanted for the business for the next 20, 30 years. So the first step was to build the team for this project inside La Nacion, which basically consisted, I was a project manager. Was also facility management at the same time. I won't go into semantic debates, but I wanted a diffuse reach for the facility management. There was a financial committee formed by a financial manager, and the financial aspect was very important. And the highest authority was the executive committee, whose president was one of the owners of the company. So we defined a team to make the decisions. The first steps, I'm simplifying it here, but the first steps were to contract a project for the shell and core building. And we had a partner for this building, and he's the owner of Emprendimiento al Río. And we only had 31% of the building. The 69% is owned by this owner of Emprendimiento, and this is going to have 600,000 square meters that are built, where there will be many office buildings or parking spaces and a mall. But this is the first thing that was built as part of this complex, and we had this partner. So our special worry was, are we going to build a building that might be very profitable, but we wanted it to also uh, adequate itself to our needs without it ceasing to be a good product to be offered in the marketplace. We wanted to make our needs reciprocated. We contracted for Shell and Core along with our partners, uh, our building project managers for the interior spaces of our offices that occupied a part of that building. An important part here that we might expand on later is that we made the decision that it's not very usual in the market to contract the interior design almost at the same time as the project of the whole building. And this brought a lot of advantages because there would be a mutual influence, and we also we went to the same studio to do the project, and this gives us a lot of advantages because the interior design influenced and modified the Shell and Core project and vice versa. And for us, it was very important because the La Nación, for the operation of the newspaper, which isn't an operation like an average office, it was very important to have some premises respected that I will talk about later. After this, continuing with this starting point, we had a phase where we had internal discussions, which was very interesting because of the experience, and I would like to share some of it with you, uh, especially the things that had to do with cultural differences. We had to tear down some buildings, not only mine but others, and we changed many paradigms. There were at times a lot of resistance, but the obtained results were very good. The first thing we did was debate the principles, concepts, abstractions with the executive committee. We wanted to force the debate so that we could lay out the concepts that we wanted the project to reflect an abstract level, to have it as a reference point in each step, and with the consensus and approvals that we need so we could get to the end of the project. I'll talk about the principles that came up later. And then we had the total surface that we were going to occupy inside that building. Also, the definition of standards of workspaces, which was something new in this company, and it generated a lot of discussions, especially because our project, so that flexibility could be impulsed, tried to have very few standards, only two standards in the project. And there are a lot of people who were differentiated by hierarchy and interpreted that their office and their desk and it all was related to their position in the hierarchy. And now they would have a similar space to people who are lower on the chain of command. And this would generate a lot of debates. So these standards were defined, then the space was distributed, which department would occupy which sector of the building, how many square meters, etc. And then we advanced with the project until the details of defining the work spaces, the desks, the chairs. We had a mini showroom inside the company to make some of the decisions, trying out the furniture, etc. We now go over to the project. I'm going to describe very briefly some of the numbers and data from the project, and I'll emphasize the concepts of the project and how they were materialized in the building. The project from the Shell and Core building, it's a building that has 20 with a with an area of more than 43 square meters. It's a triple A classified building according to the Argentinian and American classification. These classifications aren't always that concrete, as we saw, and it's also certified as a green building according to the LEED from the United States Green Building Council. It also has space for commercial locals and for office spaces that will be in the same building. And it has one characteristic that's very interesting that you can see here in this picture, that the core that you can see there on the south side, it's rigid. That's where the vertical circulation is, and also the bathrooms. They're on the sidelines, which gives a very efficient building without the core interfering. Other aspects of the building are that it has an RB air conditioning system, has UPS, BMS for automatic control of different things. What else? Okay, so some of the lower stories of the building, which you can see. The lower stories are the widest ones with 300 square meters, and the higher stories have about 1,200 square meters that are covered. This is a small description of the building, where we also made sure that it would comply with our needs. That some of them you can see in blue. We needed, apart from an access that would be common and general access, that you can see with the arrow from the Libertador Street, to have independent access and have a hall with our independent elevators with our access control. Here you can see a picture in the same hall we can see two groups, which is one for the nation, and it's exclusive, which you can see with the mouse arrow. I found it there. And as I was saying, the access controls and internal accesses are independent. We also had lateral access that was also independent. And because there are some sectors at La Nación that we were interested in, that if a person wants to deliver something, they wouldn't have to come in as a visitor. And there are other sectors that we were also interested that they were in the lower stories of the and having a lobby. And you can also see that there's a staircase here, that's a glass staircase that's in the middle. That I can show you a picture here, as you can see from the offices, and another picture seen from the stairway. It's a staircase that, in our case, it's a very important detail because it's exclusive for our stories, and it integrates the whole office, and where we're interested that the whole staff would be integrated. We came from offices that were very compartmentalized, and we had the expectation that the space would change our way of working, or would help towards changing the way we would work. I will now talk a bit about the project, some brief data on this interior design project. Um, you can see that we have, where we're in the first story, where we have a restaurant and a kitchen exclusive for the staff at La Nación. And then we have the second, third, fourth, and fifth stories, which are bigger. And we also have a balcony. The total area is 10,000 square meters. There's a hall with exclusive elevators. And we also have our own electronic group, or UPS. For this, critical systems are very important because the newspaper has to come out every day. Air conditioning with our RBS system, and our own systems for half tension. We're going to talk now about the concepts, which is what I wanted to really focus on in this brief introduction. The concepts this project was based on, and which I can say in a coherent way, they were maintained throughout the whole project until we materialized it during construction. Was, in the first place, the first concept that was asked was flexibility. We should have the capacity of changing quickly in a simple and economic way. It should be a comfortable space and inspiring, with a lot of lighting, with a high quality of the air that would impulse collaboration and teamwork, that would show transparency of the company, and that it should be modern. As you can see, they're the complete opposite of the initial picture I showed you as a starting point. We can see how this all materializes. This is a typical story. This is a third story at our building. In respects of flexibility, you can see that there are two types of workspaces. What's in the open space? They're all the same. And then the few closed offices that you can see, most of them are meeting rooms. So there are only two types of workspaces: closed offices and open space. On this image, you might not see them, but they're large desks. They're more than 2 meters wide. Um, they're curved desks, and there are ample hallways, which is important for privacy and isolation that one might achieve. and not being affected by uh, an excessive noise. The perimeter is all light. There's a lot of windows. As you can see, we didn't put the most important office in the corner or the window. It's all free, and all closed offices are in the central nucleus. And the big debates, as I was saying before, came up when there were two categories of people, and uh, closed offices were a lot smaller than the offices we had before. In some cases, a lot smaller. This generated a lot of discussions, and there was a couple of managers wanted to introduce a new subcategory with more privacy. But finally, from the debates, we approved the project this way. There's a concept here that I think is important to comment on. That sometimes you just say that if it's open or not so open or closed. I think it's a bigger thing than all this. What happens here has to do with that analysis that I was talking about, that Paulo was talking about before. That in one of the offices that have been designed many years ago, you can see while you walk through the offices that half of them are empty, half the people aren't there. But on the other side, there's a feeling that there's no place to meet. There are not enough meeting rooms because nowadays people aren't all day long in the office, and there's a lot of teamwork where people have to meet. So it's not just that it's more open, but it's an integral concept where your workspace isn't just your desk, but your desk plus a meeting room plus a bigger room, or maybe that informal corner where you can chat with your colleagues, or that place where you can maybe eat at the dining hall, which could also serve as a meeting room, or the auditorium that you can see there at the right part of the figure. This is an integral part of this. If one only designed open offices but without enough meeting rooms, it probably won't work. Or if we have open offices but they're all very have a very high density, it would be very uncomfortable to work in. I think the concept works when one sees it in an integral vision. At this point, even though we have a system to reserve meeting rooms via audio, it's almost never necessary because there's always meeting rooms, and that's the key. Because this system works if there's always meeting rooms available. If we didn't have that, it wouldn't make much sense. Another thing that I can talk about is about the staircase that integrates all our stories. For example, if the newsroom is in the second floor and someone has to go to another floor, and they can feel that it's very integrated, that it's very close. We came from an office where you had to take the elevator and you would feel that you're far away. Now everything is very immediate, and one can see from any corner, you can see the whole floor. And really, it's all integrated and encourages teamwork. There was also a change in the way we treated residue. We started separating our trash. There are centers where you can divide it into 8 types of garbage. And then for common residues, which are usually paper residues, there are 2 sets in each perimetral column, one for paper and the other one for other residues. And we had no trash cans on any desk. That was something new, but we had some pilot experiments in the previous offices, and it worked pretty well. So when we moved here, people assumed it naturally. Okay, I'll show you. The mouse isn't working correctly. I'll show you some of the pictures. of the offices. This is a view of the third floor. So you can see the workspaces, you see the whole perimeter has basically windows. And to the right, you can see the closed offices, which are also have glass doors. This is a closed office of a director or a high-level manager. I'll show you some pictures of the second floor. This is a newsroom, which is similar, but it's a bit higher because it has a lot of TV monitors hanging from the ceiling. And this is the room where editors meet up every day. And there you can see the secretary room of the newsroom. That's the heart of the newsroom. And this is a view of the room that's seen from the hall of the second floor. Here we were looking to show this transparency, which was one of the premises. One gets to the second floor, and if he goes in at 4 p.m., he'll see the the high-level management of the newsroom deciding, and they will see the employees working. This is that second floor. They're all similar and with the same concept. This is the first floor with our cafeteria. And I'll talk to you now about the moving process. Moving included 750 people, which are administration and the journalists of the newspaper. I'm going to talk simply about the communication process, which we undertook for the logistics process. Moving is logistics, but it works well with good communication. That's the point that I wanted to transmit. Without a good communication, even though you can have as much logistics as you want, it won't work because it generates a lot of nervousness and negation, denial, a lot of reactions. And this whole process is important. It's important to accompany it with good communication. Within our communications plan, we had corporate emails that would communicate the news that we were building a new space and that we were going to move on a certain date. And it was a problem to decide when to communicate this because, as usual, um, construction was lagging. We had some presentations for the different managers. We visited the construction site. We also had meetings with each department and to show results, meetings where we would present and adjust the project or coordinate the whole transfer. We also we didn't want to move the things that were unnecessary. Previously, we wasted a lot of paper and a lot of things that hadn't been used in years weren't discarded. And immediately before we moved, we we had we made maps with the origin and the destiny, and we would send out emails. Finally, the day we were moving, we gave out a handbook and a welcome kit. I can show it to you. Some picture from this handbook. It had basically an explanation of the installations in the building, where everything was located, the technology, the IP technology we were having with phones, and so that the arrival would be as comfortable as possible with a lot of graphics and visual explanations, as you can see there, of the different sectors where everything was located. I will talk a little bit about logistics and coordination, which is the second key for the moving process. We defined what we were going to move. the restrictions that we would have uh, in both buildings. In the new building, it was complex because it was still under construction. So we had to share some facilities. When we would move the furniture and the computers, at the same time, it was still being built. The coordination with the advance of the resources, the reach, and the contracting the company that would coordinate the whole move. We had a logistics plan. As you can see, this is a table where you can see the format of each sector and the date that we were moving. 750 people were moved in 5 steps over 2 weeks, and it has to do with the operation of the company. Finances couldn't do it in the first or last week of the month. Human resources had to deal with salary increases. The newsroom couldn't move during the World Cup or elections or certain processes. And so we built this jigsaw puzzle where we could see which sector would move on which day, and we had a consensus with each department. There was also a logistics that that was more complicated for those elements that we were moving, not only people but also artwork or televisions or refrigerators, some furniture, and etc. The result of all this was a move of which we had a poll, and 47% said they were satisfied. So it was we were very proud of that. And I conclude by showing you this picture, the before and after. This is a photo of the whole floor and the newsroom, and people seem pretty happy. And that's the biggest pride that we have in this project. Thank you very much.